Kenya's Wildlife Service is planning to set up a forensic and genetic laboratory to enhance studies in population genetics and reduce poaching activities by providing credible prosecutorial evidence in court. The Sakya Institute for Comparative Genomics of the American Museums of Natural History has pledged equipment worth $178,000 to support the Nairobi lab. I recently spoke with Julius Kipng'etich, the director of the KWS, about the laboratory's critical role.
Now, the idea of a forensic and DNA lab for us has been in the works for the last 3 years. The whole idea is, with the new constitution, the threshold for evidence in a court of law has gone up. You can't just bring a mwananchi who has committed a crime and tell him, I caught you with bushmeat. The first thing their defense lawyer will do is prove it. So we want to improve our scientific capability to actually prove in a court of law that this was giraffe meat or this was zebra meat. Right now, it's a process of elimination. If it was not cow meat, it was not goat, then it must be wild. That is the method we use. But now we want to scientifically say in a court of law, with a lab which is certified, and say this is this animal's meat. That is phase one. Phase two is to go into a lot of DNA barcoding of all wildlife in Kenya. And we'll begin with the big ones, the mammals. And so we want to map, for example, we have approximately 2,000 lions in Kenya. We want to map all those 2,000 lions and have a barcode, the relationships between them. If it is rhinos, we have 1,006 rhinos in Kenya. We want to map all that. We have 37,000 elephants. So it's a whole project of barcoding, improving the identification of our wildlife. And it will be the first such lab in East and Central Africa. So we want to be a node for excellence, and we want to be supporting also all our neighboring countries. So it's a center of excellence for science in Nairobi.
What would it take actually to barcode all the animals across all the national parks and game reserves?
There are two ways. Either you do what we call non-invasive, which is you collect, say, elephant dung, or you dart the elephant and then you take blood samples. That is more accurate when you want to do DNA analysis. So we are going to be using both methods. Based on the food they eat, we can actually do DNA mapping on the habitats and DNA mapping of the animals, so that we can say if ivory ceased, say, in Thailand, okay, and then we can take the sample of that ivory and say this one came from Tsavo based on the barcodes, and say this must have ate grass in Tsavo. Then we say this came from this ecosystem, and so we're able to pin. That capability is only done now in America, and for all the seizures of ivory we have been having, we normally send them to University of Washington in Seattle and for analysis.
Indeed, the threat to Kenya's wildlife is not Kenyans, is it? Is it Kenyans, or it is actually international, highly connected, powerful criminals?
Okay, 99% of all the seizures never came from Kenya. They either came from DRC or sometimes Tanzania, or as the case may be Zambia. So they came from neighboring countries because we have the strongest law enforcement system in Africa. Very, very strong. We not only monitor our airports, we also monitor our border points. We also monitor the port of Mombasa. So a lot of these are actually trafficking through our system. So poaching is a major problem in Africa today. It's a serious problem, and the reason is, if you look at the criminal syndicates, they are in 3 layers. There is the major boys that import, and typically they are either in China, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, that corner of Asia. And then there are the brokers. The brokers are the middlemen. Now, these middlemen are typically people in Eastleigh, Nairobi, who do the conveyancing. And then the actual killer is now typically a local boy In the 80s, it used to be a Somali bandit coming all the way from Mogadishu. That has changed. They now hire a local boy because they know the threat.
Well, Julius Kipng'etich played a key role in raising funds for Nairobi's Forensic and Genetic Laboratory, leading a delegation to the U.S. to lobby wildlife conservation groups and the U.S. Congress. Tomorrow, in part 2 of my report, I'll have more on the challenges of wildlife conservation.